Hello and welcome to Kerbal Space Program Episode 3. And last playthrough, Jebediah Kerman splatted into the ground quite nastily, to be honest. And yeah, the Space Center hasn't quite been the same without him. But now we have his brother, Bill Kerman, in a replica spaceship of the one that's now floating around the sun. And to be honest, we may as well just get this launch on the road and get it over and done with and collect as much science as possible. It's going to be exactly the same mission as we did last time, so now we're throttling up and launching. So yeah, this is pretty much going to be exactly the same stuff as we did last time, trying to get a lunar orbit around, well, lunar orbit around the moon. Just touch into it a little bit and get as much science as possible. And there we go, there goes the solid rocket boosters, and we are on to the next stage. Again, we've got the command capsules around the top of the side stage rockets just to give that bit more stability and whatnot. So yeah, we're going to start doing our gravity turn now, soon, just to get into a decent orbit, and I'm trying to keep the throttle around 250 meters per second before we get out the lower atmosphere. Just because we don't want to waste any more thrust and whatnot with it. And as you can see, the sun is starting to set, and it's a bit awkward to get a nice lighting point for you guys. It's a bit dull and boring looking at it like this. So let's go into the map view and check our apoapsis. Only 30k at the moment, so try and raise it up a bit more. Approaching 600 and 700 meters per second now, and we're nearly at the golden 70 to 80 kilometers high. There we go, we are now at the point where we can do our apoapsis, so I'm just creating a node and getting ready to burn to circularize our orbit. As you can see, the orbit path of our previous rocket is still floating around, but the rocket should be heading into deep space soon enough. Or deep space. Just gotta casually wait a little bit until we're at the perfect time to orbit, or burn to get our orbit. And we're nearly there, so I think I'm gonna start throttling up soon. Oh no, just time warp a little bit more. Now I'm gonna burn. If you haven't guessed, this is post-commentary because the sound file has corrupted on this video, which is a bit annoying, but what can you do? So it's only 100 meters per second now left to change our orbit, but it looks like we're going to run out of fuel on that stage. So we can ditch that and go on to our final rocket. So yeah, we're just watching this and burning continuously. Nothing interesting is really happening at the moment. Just trying to get into the perfect circularized orbit. Wow, a roughly circularized orbit. And our periapsis is just coming out of the planet now. And somebody's just attacked me on Skype. And there we go, we've got our circularized orbit. Let's do some science while we got nothing going on. Transmit that, just because we got plenty of battery power, so it won't hurt to use it and whatnot. And that was another 5 science added for the greater cause. And we're doing another transmission just to get as much science as possible. So yeah, not much interesting stuff happening at the moment, but it's always good to do as much science as possible. Now, I'm gonna try and get myself an encounter with the Mun. I'm just creating a basic node here, and now I'm rotating it around, and there we go, we got a nearly perfect orbit with the Mun. I'm just gonna faff with it a little bit until we get a decent point. There we go, and now I'm gonna start the burn. So yep, here we go, getting into position on the node here, and we are ready to go. Throttling up in just a second once we time warp to the place, and it's burn time with 800 meters per second to decrease it by. So I'm just going to get into the natural chase camera view and just watch it as we go past the Kerbal planet, and the Mun slowly creeps up over our shoulder. Back into the map view, and we can see our periapsis is slowly rising up, and we're about halfway through the burn, give or take. And we're nearly there, 250 left. And we've got plenty of time. I started burning just a bit before the node, so that we'll roughly get a 50-50 split of burn before and after, and that will get us directly on course and matching the predicted pathway. And there we go. A nearly 100% perfect match, and just a little bit overburnt. But that doesn't really matter because we've got pretty much everything sorted. So now time to speed up time until we get towards our Mun periapsis. Going at 1,000 times speed here. It always amazes me how short the missions feel in the game. So far we're only 3 hours in, and we are currently in a lunar orbit, which means that we can get as much science as possible. So instead of transmitting this, I'm just going to keep the data on the rocket so that we can return back to Kerbal and collect all the science from there, because that will give us more science overall in fewer missions, which makes our life handy. Now I'm just faffing with the orbit here a little bit. Unfortunately that's going to put us on an escape trajectory. So I'm just faffing with the orbits to see if I can get as close to Kerbin as possible without doing much work. And I'm also just casually investigating how much fuel it would take to put me into a lunar orbit. So as you can see, it was only about 800 meters per second difference. And I think I just end up doing more maneuvers just to see if I can get closer and closer. And there we go. That looks to be like the perfect orbit. So I'm just going to set us up for the burn in a second by rotating the ship. It's all pretty much boring stuff. And I don't think we're on an inclined plane, or that much of an inclined plane, which is always handy. So I'm going to burn our periapsis, because that's pretty much where I set up the node, and I had a feeling at the time I thought it would cost the least amount of fuel to do, but this orbit pathway will take us directly into the planet, which is always handy. So yes, it's just a case of continuing to burn and burn and burn, and now we are pretty much exactly on the right spot. So it's time to do the time warp and speed around until we get back to our planet. We're going incredibly slowly once we reach the top of our orbit, which was about 100 meters per second. Whoa! Almost crash landed into the planet then. We're about 200k above the surface and decreasing incredibly fast. So I'm gonna start burning retrograde just to try and slow us down a little bit, because we're going at like 3000 meters per second. Once I get the ship under control, because we're wobbling about all over the place. It's a slippery bugger, to be honest. And we start the burn near enough to our retrograde orbit because, well, retrograde point. And I decide that it's probably best to try and move us towards the little island in the distance. Mainly because I really wanted to get there and was quite curious about it. Because I'm wondering whether there's any secret loot on there that nobody's really discovered. Or whether we can do additional sciencing, which would also be quite fun. But unfortunately, I think it's a case that we don't have enough fuel to get there because we're going far too fast, as you can see from the lovely re-entry effects. If this was real life, we'd be dead, because the ship would probably just heat up and explode. So, oops, I accidentally jettisoned the stage there, just because I had a feeling that it was going to go from bad to worse, and I released the parachutes to try and slow me down to a huge extent. Fortunately, I don't think there's any damage to the ship, despite what the explosion showed, except maybe we have lost a single communications antenna, which shouldn't have caused an explosion, but hey ho. I don't hold this game to be 100% accurate, and yes, it's right, we have lost a single communications antenna. And Bill is looking very sad. He probably thinks that he's going to have the same fate as his brother. So I'm just going to time warp until we get bit closer to the surface. 3,000 meters, 2,000 meters, 1,000 meters, and I slow down a little bit because I know the parachutes are going to open soon. And 500 meters, and the chute's open. So now it's safe to speed up time again, I think. In a second. Okay, maybe not. We're going at a nice and hasty 3 meters per second, and I got myself in a vertical position. Now I start time warping again. I always like to land vertically because I think the pilots would like it like that, and it also shows a bit of professionalism. See, Bill's already happy with the situation, and it's just a case of slowing down until we reach the surface, which is in 50 meters, 30, and back to regular speed, 20, 10, and splashdown. So now we can and now we are returning back to the Space Center to redeem all of that juicy science that we've just collected. So yes, trying to find where the rocket landed, because I'm a bit of a doofus. Oh yes, and the poles are the last places of biomes that I need to get science from, but we can do that at a later date. Now I'm just gonna check on the other rocket, and yep, we got a fairly eccentric orbit around the sun. I could terminate it, but I think the best thing to do would be to go and spend my science, because I'm gonna leave that rocket out there. Maybe it'll get an encounter with one of the planets, if at all possible. So we've now got 158 science to spend. So I'm going to get the solar panels. Can't quite afford the bigger solar panels yet, so I'm going to get general construction because of this struts, which are really incredibly useful. And I'm also going to get stability just so that I can get the additional winglets, which are also again really useful. So yes, I'm now just going to take a quick checkup on the rocket that escaped. Unfortunately I can't rename it like I'm trying to here because it doesn't have a crew. So that's the end of episode 3 of KSP, and I'll bring you a more interesting rocket launch as soon as we get back.